we getting ready for the ready? I like that.
Yo, I got a lot of living to do before I die. I ain't got time to waste. Time don't wait. Everything costs. Time been money. I don't fool with homie. Slime been funny. I don't do no jokes unless I'm the one telling them. Y'all nasty like 69. Y'all boys telling. Stay away from goofies. This is not a movie. Avoiding loopholes from U-Haul, you don't move.
Peace, big love, big blessings, even bigger living. Everything that come with it, everything in between. You are tuned into Thinking Out Loud with Samuel David. I want to introduce my guest, but I'm going to wait because I got to first. I'm going to go long-winded. I first got to give a major shout out to my producer, Gabe, GBC Visuals, our location, Mulberry Art Gallery here in Wichita, Kansas. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, Thinking Out Loud Convo, TikTok, Thinking Out Loud Convo, everywhere you can find your podcast. Thinking Out Loud with Samuel David. It's just a conversation. And like and subscribe on YouTube. Thinking Out Loud Convo. Now that we got the stuff that y'all don't really care about out the way. Woo. Listen, today I have one of the most special guests in the world. Y'all see we've rebranded the podcast, and I was like, I cannot have Christina on the podcast until I rebrand, because I wanted it to be at that level that you deserve, because you wanted him.
Goodness.
You feel me? Today I have the owner of the CML Collective, president and founder of Create Campaign, Keep Me Honest, a third of Founders Grove.
We're at Founders Grove. It's the location name.
The location name. Strategic Inclusive Communications Director for Network Kansas.
Oh, you really did that.
Come on, man. I do a little bit.
Okay, yes.
Wife, mother,
Yes.
the plug. I'm talking about since 2015, 400 plus minority-owned businesses provided various resources. Thanks to Mrs. Christina Long. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm here.
You're here. Listen, I always say I woke up alive.
That's right.
Right?
That's real.
A lot of times people try to throw you with some bush. They try to hit you with the extras and et cetera. The first question I love to ask, because it helps me know where we're going.
Okay.
How's your spirit?
My spirit today is happy. Like, it's good. It's energized. It's been a little rough
Okay.
last couple of months, but we're coming out of that by choosing to be better and choosing to just take things as they're coming, because a lot of stuff is coming, but counting it all joy. So,
Ooh, joy.
yeah.
Choosing.
Choosing joy.
I swear that's a conversation I have all the time. Like, happiness is a side effect of your choices.
Right.
It's all perspective. I love that. That makes my heart smile.
Yes.
I got a long list of questions, Christina.
Let's get at it.
And I like to get personal, professional. We're gonna go all over the place.
Okay.
And we just thinking out loud.
Okay, we just thinking
out loud. So the first question I will ask, especially recognizing how much you do community-wise, professional-wise, you got a crib to take care of as well.
Yeah.
I was eager to see how you wore your hair today, because I know you have so many hats.
Yeah.
You wear so many hats, right? How do you find that genuine work-life balance, right? That sacrifice or investment of your time and your peace to also support home and community.
Right. I will say I always didn't get it right.
Okay.
There was times, especially early in the grind, when trying to balance, my for-profit and the non-profit and just everything that was coming with being what I call downtown Christina. We'll get into that, I suppose, if you ask me. I didn't always get it right, so it took my kids. I always ask them, like, how am I doing as a parent? Because I love the relationship we have. I believe that our children should be able to express to us how we're doing. So for my birthday one year, I asked them to write me letters, like, how am I doing as a parent? They're like, Mommy, you're great, all of this, you're doing a lot of good work, but we noticed, like, when you put us to bed, you stay up and work. When you get up, and when we get up, you're cranky, because stuff was out of order. And it only took my babies one time, because they should never be at the cost or the sacrifice for everything that's going on.
100.
So they are at the centerpiece of everything that I'm doing as well, and home is important. And so sometimes I have what's called go time.
Okay.
And go time is basically head down in the work. Don't bother me, like, just let me focus and do what I do. Go time at home lasted too long one year for 3 weeks. That was the year of the letter.
Okay.
They needed mama. And so it was really good for me. I used to put in like 24-hour days. Like
Okay.
literally, this is not figuratively. If I open up my phone right now, people are like, how do you live this? Everything is organized, everything is compartmentalized, and if one thing gets off track, everything kind of gets off track.
Word.
But I learned how to put in that grind, but that's not healthy. That's not healthy. So I used to go to sleep 3 or 4 in the morning, get up 6, do it again, you know? And I don't do that anymore.
Okay.
But there are some times where you still got to put your head down and grind. So I might see 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, but 3 is my hard stop.
Word.
Yeah.
Whew, that was packed. I'm gonna have to get to who downtown Christina. We're gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
But I love to talk parenthood for one.
Right.
Because that took a lot of vulnerability as a parent, right, to ask that question.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I'm big. I think my daughter would say, like, we have genuine conversations and we talk because that's how they're people.
Exactly.
They're young people, right?
Exactly.
So I applaud that. Is that something that you found, or you was like, I'm just gonna try this myself? Or is that how you were raised? Or where did that idea come from?
We always had in our household an opportunity to express with respect.
Okay.
So as long as we're respectful, the obligation was for us to express how we felt. And my parents gave us the runway to be able to do that. Still, maybe I took that a little too far as a kid. My mom would always say, Christina, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Okay.
So, you know, rounded that out. But my kids, I've always believed that I want to hear their voice. Because if you don't take the time to articulate your voice in this world, then you will be messed over. You will be skipped over. And I wanted my kids to come out the gate with the ability to express. So that starts at home.
I love that. That's real. At home is where everything starts. Every time I see a conversation on the internet, people having divided thoughts. I love to point out contradictions and hypocrisy in real life. It's my favorite thing. But every time I see that, I think about the kids. So
Oh, yeah.
that makes my heart smile. You're dope. You know it. So in that same realm, I'm gonna stick to what you just told me to ask. Downtown Christina. Is that a moniker? Is that another side of
It's
you?
a thing. It's a thing. So, I mean, I grew up at 19th and Ash, so I always start there because that's really important in cultivating who I am as a person. Many people know that I used to be a reporter with the Wichita Eagles, so I can go anywhere in the city and feel okay, right?
Word.
But it wasn't until I got into the business world that I was like, oh, this is downtown Christina. I was showing up and having to put on the fact that I'm going into spaces where I'm not only the only person of color, the only woman a lot of times, and I'm probably in my mind at that time, I thought I was the poorest one in the room because I'm dealing with business owners who they were able to sit at tables that I was invited to by paying $10,000, $20,000. I don't have that kind of money to be sitting at these tables, but I was invited. So you have to get over the fact that you don't necessarily see anyone who looks like you, but then also, are you worthy to be at the table because you couldn't pay to be at the table you were invited. So my downtown persona, people didn't, you know, you never got invited necessarily to people's homes, but you would always get invited to coffee. I don't drink coffee. So reporters, we never get asked to go out to coffee. So this was a whole nother thing. Okay, y'all, we go out for coffee. I'll get my hot chocolate. Find something, you know, be comfortable, you know, going and talking with people at coffee and understanding what coffee is compared to being invited to lunch. And, you know, there's just little subtleties.
So, hold on, because there's some gems in that. It's some gems in that. So as a business owner, as somebody that's networking and maneuvering through corporate spaces, what is the difference between going out or being invited rather to coffee versus lunch?
Yeah, so in my own experience, coffee is it's a more casual encounter. Okay. You're not committed to a full hour sometimes. You're committed to, here, we're gonna grab a cup of coffee. It's light conversation, light exchange. And coffees are they're easy, right? Yeah. When you get invited to lunch, that's an audience. Okay, there's a meal involved, a higher price ticket item, there's captured conversation. That's a little bit more in depth. And so I quickly learned the difference between an invitation to coffee and an invitation to lunch. And also an invitation to drinks, an invitation to homes, rarely comes.
Ooh, relationships, rapport through networking. That's the real thing.
Yeah.
Like it's always interesting to see. So I've been to some of the tables you talk about, right? Like especially like the things hosted by Wichita Business Journal and stuff like that. And you look around at some of the tables, and the first time I was in one,
how'd you feel?
It was interesting to say the least. I didn't know how to feel because I was just looking around, and like you said, I knew that they were paid for. So it didn't hit me the same as like, I wonder what this person does. But it was interesting to see that there weren't many people of color, right? Or if there were, they would be the only ones sitting at their table, right? Let alone many women of color.
Right.
So I ask you, even like in that space, did you ever deal with any type of like imposter syndrome or feeling like,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
So what, because you can't tell, right? I mean, you're very distinguished, of course, in how you handle your business.
Thank you.
You're welcome. How did you shape that feeling early on? How long did it last even?
You know, sometimes it pops up now and again because there's different levels to it. So we say there's levels to this. When I first got introduced to what I call the downtown scene, truly, like you walk in a place and you count on your fingers silently, like how many were in the room, right?
Yeah.
But then when I got invited, and I tell this story, so I'm gonna be real. I got invited to a table at the Wichita Regional Chamber of Commerce. It was a group called the Entrepreneurship Task Force. And it was a group of business leaders that met every 2 weeks at 8 a.m. to look at what's happening in the Wichita entrepreneurship ecosystem. I got invited to that table because of Jonathan, my husband, who created Urban Professionals. We had a magazine called Urban Magnate. And I kept hearing there's all this stuff happening in downtown Wichita about entrepreneurship, but it's not hitting our communities. What is going on? So I was able to identify a person I needed to speak to. His name is Gary O'Borney. He's the president and CEO of Occidental Management. So I went to do an interview with Gary for Urban Magnate. After the end of the interview, he asked me if I would come and chair what was called at that time the African American Committee of the Entrepreneurship Task Force. I said, well, can I get an invitation to the task force first before I jump into leadership? Like, I don't know what y'all are doing.
Word.
And so I remember going into that first meeting at the chamber. Now, I wasn't in business very long at that time. I had launched a t-shirt company in 2013. This invitation came in 2015.
Okay.
Right? Before my second anniversary, so that would have been 2014, I changed my company's name with the help of Kansas Small Business Development Center. I was making t-shirts. They say you make these flyers, brochures, all these things. So you're not just a t-shirt company. So I changed my company name, became CML Collective, Full Scale Graphic Design Communication Services. Still working at the school district too at that time, and doing Urban Professionals with Jonathan, all of that.
Juggling.
So all of that. So I go to this meeting, and with all of that knowledge, which wasn't a lot, and there are all of these businessmen. And I say men because there were very few women in the room. I think there might have been one, Trish Braystead. And Trish is dope. She deals with equity investors and angel investors. She's earned her keep, right? And so here I am.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is different. And they're talking about, again, the SBAs, like these institutions that exist to do business, and how at that time they could do better in Wichita about bringing African Americans into the fold. And I kept quiet because I was trying to navigate. I was trying to navigate.
You were not the spokesperson.
I was not the spokesperson at that time. Sure. I was overwhelmed. And a couple of those meetings happened. And Gary pulled me to the side once and he said, hey, I noticed you're pretty quiet. Like, what's going on? Can you tell me what's going on? And I had a decision to make. I could either trust him for inviting me in the space or I could continue to be quiet. And I've always felt like we shouldn't just be happy being at the table. We have to have a voice, but you have to know how to navigate in that space.
I don't want to stay where you at.
Yes, sir.
But there was a bar in there. That's a gym, right? To know who you can trust in that space, right? And recognize, I'm not just, am I invited or am I invited?
Exactly.
Keep going. So I just have to acknowledge that was.
That's it. And I asked Gary, I said, hey, like you invited me here and I hear some things, I see some things, but do you really want my voice in this space? And he said, I wouldn't have invited you if I didn't want you in the space. And I said, well, I may say some things that might shake some things up. And he essentially, in his way, said, I got your back.
Word.
So I trusted that. And what ended up happening was I created a half-day event at Wichita State University. We called it the Create Campaign Forum. But had he and I have not had that conversation, and if I had been too intimidated to go back after the first meeting, Create Campaign probably would not have been born.
Word. Yeah. Layers. So, because I always have a list of questions, and I start asking questions, and I shy away from this list. So I got some questions I'm gonna get to.
Okay.
But how do you recognize that you can indeed trust, right? Especially, I know a lot of times minority-owned business owners, right? It's twofold. You may go through the process of, going through school, getting acclimated into the business that way, or you're just genuinely pursuing a passion that you feel is a purpose and you want the profit from it, right? and always the business maturity is not there, or the emotional intelligence even. How do you know who to trust without getting burnt?
Yeah.
I guess, right?
Yeah. So some of it is trial and error.
Okay.
It really is. But there's also distinctions from your gut, right? And I have what I call my people factor. And that's if, like, I pick up an energy, a vibe, if truly by your deeds, not just your words, say that I can trust, then my people meter goes off and I'm like, okay, you're people.
Right.
And with Gary, I always thought, he didn't have to invite me to lead. Okay? He didn't know me from anybody but that interview. But whatever I did, he was impressed enough not to just say, hey, I want to bring you into this space. He said, I want you to lead. So that kind of was like, okay. Then when I got in the space and kind of saw what he was doing, essentially that group grew into a group of 40 business liaisons, but it started as a group of CEOs only, of which Gary was asked, along with another gentleman named Scott Schwindeman, was asked to lead this. And Gary had shared that conversations were going okay, but they weren't going to productivity because you have a whole bunch of CEOs in the room.
Yeah.
So he basically said, I would like to have more control over inviting more people who actually do the work. And if that can't happen, we might need to look at a different leadership skill. So he had put himself out there to change and include more of the people who are doing entrepreneurship work. So you look for that with people. He could have been very happy to say him and Scott led this esteemed group of CEOs around entrepreneurship and let that be, but he didn't. So I trusted that. But altogether, we are in Wichita, Kansas. The demographics look the way that they look. We are not 90, as far as black people, we are not 90% of the population here.
Right.
So we have to extend some trust somewhere. But thankfully now there's organizations like Create Campaign, who we do work to make sure that relationships are not just, again, people say they want to service, but it really is a vetted and trusted relationship built on connection, built on, again, wanting to do better by our communities and putting in resources so that we have opportunities to not just learn how to navigate businesses, but actually get access to resources to help us stay in business.
Ooh, sustainability. They say it's easy to start, it's harder to keep it.
Right.
Come on now. That leads to my actual question I have here, because you said a lot, which you might have answered this question even, right? You talked about Create Campaign. Sound like 2015 is when it sparked. All pun intended, because I ain't got Spark Academy as well. But what sparked that passion to be able to create spaces for other minority businesses, right? Outside of the work you were doing, because that's a very selfless act, right?
I didn't know what I was stepping into. I thought I was a place keeper, basically. I figured, hey, we're at the chamber figured it out. Like, I figured, at that time there were 2 black chambers here. One of them or both of them would be able to be resourced enough to step in the space and lead. There's a Hispanic chamber, like, surely not me. I could put together an event because as a reporter, again, that's what we know how to navigate. We know how to bring people together. We know how to package information. But in terms of what happened after that event, people calling me like, hey, this was dope. Like, what's the next thing? What's happening? About how to start businesses, like, the phone kept ringing. And so that's where, again, you put people around you. And sometimes even people seeing you who they're not even around you, but they see something and pour something into you. And so one person, Del Gines, he's with the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City, was familiar with the Entrepreneurship Task Force work. And he told me after our event, because he was well aware that the Create Campaign event had happened. And he said, Christina, you know what? You might not have a 30,000-foot view of building entrepreneurship communities in the field, we call it ecosystems. He said, but you have a 10,000-foot view. And for people who are on the ground level trying to build, that is everything. So unless and until others step into the space, then you occupy it and you own it the way that you do. You don't have to be an economist. You're a connector, you're a relationship builder, you're a network builder. Do that and do that well. And that released the pressure of that imposter syndrome off of me, because flaws and all, I can be me and do what I do well. And I always felt like until someone else comes along. And I will say, someone else turned out to be me and Create Campaign, and we are completely owning the space.
To the max.
Yeah.
To the max. Like, if it wouldn't be super loud on camera, I would clap, right? And give you, like, I wish I brought roses, because you genuinely deserve the roses for the work that you put in. in this city, right, in the community, and how the impact it has to the surrounding areas as well.
Thank you.
Right, definitely.
And I wouldn't even have said like that I just said to you, because we've always been heads down in the work, super humble. Everything that we do is about impact. It is not about optics. And as a reporter, I've always been about being behind the scenes, not being the story. But in looking up, we structured as a nonprofit in 2017. So that event happened in 2015.
Okay.
I continued to grow the work. In 2017, I said, if something were to happen to me, I want the work to still happen, still go on. So I structured as a nonprofit. So 2017 to 2022, that's 5 years. And we looked, our anniversary for the building opening, we were gifted a building. I'm skipping everywhere in the story.
No, good. Hey, it's your story. Keep telling.
We got gifted a building along the way. So that's the headquarters at 21st and Grove.
Founders Grove.
Founders Grove.
Word.
Yep. And so it is, we were looking back and preparing for our anniversary of Founders Grove, year 3. And this happened a few weeks ago. And so we decided, you know what? We do have a lot, like starting to get in the data. Like we have a lot that we have done. And we've been so focused, again, heads down, making sure it's excellent, making sure people are well served and all that, that we haven't taken the time to truly reflect on how much we've touched. So we started putting together this data that we call the difference. And some of the data pieces, capital. So we have our own microloan fund, which we started in 2018.
Word.
We were able to, with the partnership of Fidelity, President Aaron Bastian, with the Bravely Onward Fund, we were able to write the microloan fund on our own terms. So whereas a traditional bank looks at a credit score of 640, we dropped it to 540. Where a traditional bank will require collateral, we waive collateral. There's an application fee, but no closing costs. And Aaron taught me how to actually service and close loans. So I know how to do the paperwork, and our organization knows how to handle repayments and all of those things. Well, we've done 8 loans in Create Campaign. This year in 2022, we did 18,000 in approvals. Over the history, we've done $94,000, but in loans to people who would not otherwise qualify. But the cool thing about it is we got invited to write other loan programs. So I influenced Empower, which is another loan from another statewide organization. And I got invited to write the City of Wichita's Propel program. All that together, we've done 191,000 in approvals from Create Capital, what we own, and then also our partner programs that we approve and or I've been invited to write.
So you about this far away from $1 million?
Well, we got a little way to go.
A little bit
to
to go.
$1 million.
Right there. we close. Magnificent freaking work. Almost cussed, but I don't want to cuss today.
Thank you.
It's really dope because I know at the Blackout ICT Awards you were awarded the plug.
That was, which was surprising. I laughed.
And it shouldn't be, right? Because I often talk about the Wichita Renaissance. And I try to make the conversation bigger than Wichita, but there's bigger issues in the world, but I got to take care of the world I know.
Right.
Right.
I love how you say that. Right.
Shout out to Jay-Z. That's his quote, but I love it, right? Because it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And you really are one of the biggest leaders of the Wichita Renaissance, I believe.
Thank you.
Definitely, right? When I look at from a business, the way businesses are elevating from political spaces to the entertainment industry to the art industry, right? So many industries being with black folks at the helm, even more so with black women at the helm, right? It's so freaking fire.
Yeah.
When I had Jay Long on the show, I asked him about like the women thing, and that was the one question that kind of stumped him, but he had a great, phenomenal answer. But that's something I always love to highlight because y'all are putting in the work. So you are the most appreciated, and I salute you to the max.
Appreciate that.
We talked about how you got started.
Yes.
What fueled the passion? Let's talk about what you're doing right now, right? And I know there's moments you have to be realistic with people who may not be the most realistic, or in my space we develop SMART goals all day, right? And one of the biggest things people miss out on is realistic, or even timely. In your space, is it a tough conversation when somebody may not have the most realistic goal for their business, or do you support some of the most lofty goals, right, and try to put measures in place to help them reach those goals they may have? What's that conversation look like?
Yeah, no, that's a great conversation. So prior to me really opening up business consultations, that service within Create Campaign, I used to be an advisor as well with Kansas Small Business Development Center, another outgrowth of me participating with the Entrepreneurship Task Force. And so I got thrown in there. And you never knew what somebody was going to come in with. And I remember, though, when I was a client at KSBDC, how it felt. And so I always brought that empathy across the table, because people don't have to trust you with their dreams, right? Yeah. They don't have to come seek your services. They don't have to ask for help. They could be really arrogant or egotistical. So I always hold, regardless of how lofty or maybe unrealistic an idea is, I remember on paper I was nobody's entrepreneur. So I give that respect to everybody who comes in. Now, where we go a little differently is when I hear that you're not putting research, or you're not being thoughtful, you're not putting rationale into your idea. You just expect, hey, I'm gonna start a YouTube station, I'm gonna get 1 million followers, and I'm gonna be it. I'm gonna be an influencer. Can I get a loan? No. Yeah. And even in that, the no is informed with, well, here's the steps. If this is what you really want to do. And oftentimes the work will weed people out itself.
That's a
so
bar.
I don't have to.
That's the work don't do itself, but it's gonna get done.
Yeah.
And if you ain't the one doing it,
yeah,
you ain't gonna be the one winning.
Exactly.
Ooh,
and that leaves a lot of people who, even if their idea is really bigger than what I could ever conceive for them, you start breaking it down and you put the steps to implementation together, then it becomes phase by phase. And there have been some incredibly lofty goals that we are seeing just fulfilled and blossoming, because the work is the separator.
I like that.
And as long as you have a client for your product or service, you have an opportunity to be able to make transactions that could lead to a business. And so I always look at, people get real excited about their passions. That's great. You can be very, very talented and creative, but who is your client? And if you don't have a client, then you don't have a business.
I had Nana last week, and that was along the same lines. If you're gonna win, if you have an audience and something of value.
Yeah.
Not what you want.
Exactly.
That's easy. That's easy to be like, yo, if I would buy it. Like, no, but you're not buying it.
Yeah.
You have to service somebody. And when you provide a service, people gonna flock, the ones that should. So as you run down your background almost, how often do you revisit that, or do you think about that ever?
I do.
Do you reflect often?
I do reflect often, but the things that I reflect on have shifted a little bit. I used to reflect on, again, am I the right person? All of those things. I don't do that anymore. I left that in design in my decade.
Okay.
I am the right person.
Word.
And I could say that, again, it's not conceit. It is not ego. It really is. Sometimes you have to declare what God allows you to be and what He has purposed you to, and not to acknowledge that is a disrespect to the Lord. Ooh. And I've been purposed to do this. Word. And so I stand upon that when I say, yes, I am one to do this. So my reflection becomes, am I doing this as efficiently as I should? Am I doing this, as strategically as I should?
Yeah.
What about, database decision making, using your data? What about the financing, behind this? And so I really look at process efficiencies and I reflect on that. And we've come a long way. We've come a long way.
It's like you read my questions, because that's another thing I was going to ask you, is like, what is an area that you constantly improve? Let me rephrase that. Okay. Now I'm kind of thinking. So when something that I run into often, and I'd be like, chill, relax. Like I try to practice the utmost humility, is people from the outside see the moves you make and they feel like you got this shit all together. Like, and it's like, no, fam, like, I know what I know, but I'm always getting better at the same time. So that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you, right? Like, what is an area that you find yourself always looking to improve, or an opportunity that you find? Because I'm sure all the time people tell you how great you are, right? You talk to 400 plus people and you're giving them all types of resources, they're going to sing your praises, right? And the various awards that you receive for your genuine work, there's something that you always trying to fix, and it's the database. It's got to go deeper than that.
Yeah. So for me, it's managing other people. So that was a surprise because I thought, I'm good, I'm organized, and I've been doing Create Campaign by myself with the support of, the board in 2017. But when you're day to day, like by myself until 2018, we got a contractor in. She was doing graphic design and she did a really good job. So then in 2019, she was our first employee.
Okay.
So from 2019 to this year, this past year, 2021, we have been just me and her day to day.
Got you.
And so that was, we learned each other and that was fantastic. But then if you're going to truly grow as an organization and as a business, you cannot do it all alone. You have to hire people. So we were able to get additional resources into our nonprofit from our expansion, which began last year, our programming expansion. We hired 2 directors, including Alejo Cabral. So he used to work at the Wichita Regional Chamber of Commerce and has been just a phenomenal addition. And Desiree Allen, she is our operations director, and she has her own company, or had her own company, and came to work for us. So it was great when it was just me and the other person, Aisha, because again, we were modeling, we were vibing, and we picked up each other's cues. But when you're setting up an organization, you have to have systems and processes in place. So everything that's here has to be operationalized. And that took a while. It took a while for people to learn my cues. It took a while for us to get just internal processes together, and it drove me insane.
Yeah.
Like it really, really, I said at one point, and I told the team, we laugh about it now, give me 20 programs, I'll knock those things out.
Yeah.
Give me 20 people, I'm running. But I am a much better manager, and it's a humility that I manage with. People have always talked about you've been a really good leader, but it's something to be a leader versus a supervisor and a manager.
That's a fact.
And so I had to stop and really relearn those skills. I actually learned, it was never a relearn. I had to learn those skills, and I'm still improving on it. But I got the right team. And so that makes a difference. Like, we know we're leveling each other up in that regard. And we're going on as a result of that to even greater heights that I would have never been able to get to easily or quickly myself. The African proverb, to go fast, you go alone, to go far, you got to go together.
That's a fact.
True.
And delegation is not easy.
No.
People leading is not easy.
No.
But then also getting people to buy into your vision.
Yeah.
So much so.
But that's a different thing with this group. So I'm blessed. I called their name because calling people's names is so important. So again, we've had Aisha Henderson, held it down, graphic designer, Desiree Allen, operations, director, Alejo Cabral, program director, and Tijuana Hartwell, who is coming as our instructor of our brand new academy. And those 5, with the addition of Val White and now Cassandra Enlow, those 5 have been in the day-to-day grind with us. And it was different because they came in with such a level of respect for me. And they came in seeing the impact of the work. Alejo came in, Christina, this isn't a program, this isn't an initiative, this is an institution. And he always, the institution of Create Campaign. And when you put the word on it, like institution versus like what I was doing, we're nonprofit. No, we're an institution. It levels it up. And so I never had buy-in as an issue. It was almost like I had to rise even higher to the occasion so that they would be all right.
That makes sense.
Right? And I didn't want to disappoint them, even though I'm the boss. I did not want to disappoint them in the esteem that they have for what I've been able to create thus far. Knowing now they got to put their hands on this so that we can take it to that next level.
Facts.
Yeah.
Whew, there's a lot of gems in there. There's a lot of gems. I remember Ed O'Malley, I believe, at the Kansas Leadership Center, right? There was a quote that he said that I heard early in my my leadership.
Disappoint people.
Right. What's that one you said?
Which one? I'm gonna see if it's
the one I remember is that being a leader is not a noun; it's a verb.
Okay. Yes, that one as well.
And what we said? You got a bunch of.
I was going to a different side, which was disappointing people at a rate they could tolerate. No.
Ooh, that's a bar too. That's a bar.
Yes.
Because that's a leadership quote to the max. Wow, I heard Deion Sanders saying something like that. I'm gonna make you quit.
Yeah.
And the ones that that don't, like, essentially the ones that don't quit is who are gonna stay, but I want to make you want to quit. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
But it's funny you mentioned the difference between manager, supervisor, and leader, because that's one of the questions I have, right? Especially the difference between a leadership and a boss. A lot of times people, again, that lack of business maturity or emotional intelligence.
I'm a boss.
I'm a boss, right? And I'd rather be considered a leader, right? Because there's a level of humility in there. There's a level of openness, a level of discipline, and you can still grow as a leader. As a boss, it's hard to, like, you feel like you got it set, right? Knowing that you have your staff, your team, I don't like, not staff, I'm sorry, your team, right? That you lead through as direct reports, a shared vision, but also with the different businesses you support and folks you support, you almost lead through influence there as well. Which one's your favorite? Leading through influence or leading through goal setting and task-oriented things for the collective?
You know, I'm probably more comfortable with leading with strategy because like it's so crazy to me. It really is crazy to me how people regard me on this side of the work. You'll always have your haters, so I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about people who are like standing up, like Christina Long, and they like say my name a certain way. And for somebody who came up at 19th and Ash, who, you know, nobody expects much from our neighborhoods, but we do.
We do.
You know, we do.
You feel me?
But even then, people from the block, like, it's a whole thing. It has become a whole thing. And while I appreciate people appreciating what I'm trying to do for business owners, for our economic, you know, development, I really am uncomfortable with it. I really am. Because again, I just hold so dear. I was not an entrepreneur, right? I am not, you know, the mogul that people have in their mindsets when they see it. Like, it was so funny to me because part of that, people were like, when I first got started with Create Campaign, oh, she must be balling because she's working with all these businesses. And I realized that I didn't make a penny from the Create Campaign. In fact, when I had my for-profit company, and I always said, as long as my for-profit can take care of my family's household and bills, Create Campaign that never has to pay me anything. I believe that much in the work that we were doing. Now I understand that the type of organization that we have requires an executive director. It requires resources to be put into it. And so the work that I do, it does demand payment. And the nonprofit itself helped me to see that. The leaders, my board, and all of those things. Because again, we're so used to, many times in our communities, we grind, we volunteer, we give. But you know what? When we are changing destinies, when we are building legacies and helping influence that, our value is worth compensation.
Come on.
And what we bring is worth compensation. So I'm not, you know, the highest executive paid in Wichita. But I tell you what, it does mean something to me that my board came to me and was like, let's put together some compensation.
For sure.
So, but all that to say, back to your original question, the strategy piece, if we working on strategy together, that's a win for both of us. I'm good with that. And there's no, oh, Christina, there is, okay, let's figure it out. I'm good there. This whole, oh, so excited to meet you. I never want to belittle, but I just never thought that would be me.
That's wow. It's dope to hear. It's humbling to hear because, again, we mentioned earlier the work, right? Whoever's doing the work is where you're going to see who's doing the work. And with you doing the work, it's even more awesome to hear you say how humble you are and the humility you practice. Because it's easy for folks to be like, oh, you see me, I'm out here, right? But I love to see folks that are putting the actual work in. That's like, yo, this is just the process.
It is
right?
The process.
Trust in the process. But even as you talk to value and recognizing your value and how easy it is for our community often to just be happy to be there sometimes, right?
You gotta get past that.
I heard an amazing quote. Channing Crowder said, he's like, I don't say thank you when people invite me to places. He said, sometimes I might even tell them you're welcome. Right? And it comes off very arrogant.
I understand the point.
But I get it, right? Because too often we're so appreciative of these opportunities. It's like, my work got me this. It ain't like I was begging to be in here. You called me. Right? You invited me to this table. Now I'm making my plate. So That's fire. That's fire to mention. Going back to the many owners, folks you speak with, you help set goal or develop goals or keep honest to their goals, right? Provide them different resources. What are some of your favorite success stories?
Oh, we have so many, and you know, there's the obvious ones, right? So Jennifer McDonald with Jenny Dawn Sellers, she's a Create campaigner. We
Word.
have Mark Daniels, Wichita Cheesecake Company, a Create campaigner. Before they even knew that cheesecake was going to be their thing, like we were there. And it was so incredible to see their start stories. There's start stories of success of us connecting investors with business owners like Chuyu Otto, Jocelyn Galicia, and all of that is wonderful. But I also get excited the fact like you and your wife, for example, came to the forum on y'all's anniversary.
Yeah,
and I'm like, y'all are here and it's your anniversary. Like that to me, that says that we created something that you didn't want to miss so much that you took a moment out of your anniversary to be here with us. Like that is incredibly humbling to me. Wow. There's people like, you know, Ashley Norris with Simply Beautiful Hair Salon, to go from a client of hers talking business stuff to seeing the growth in her. She is now one of 20 who are in our second cohort of the Spark Community Business Academy. This is a 12-week business academy that by the time like you get accepted and you're done, you will have put in more than 60 hours of business development in your business. So she's part of cohort 2. And again, to go from just talking business with my hair getting done to watching her take the time and grow one of the best hair salons that is owned by a Black woman in Wichita, and the platform that she's trying to get to other entrepreneurs in that space, having a solid brick and mortar. No disrespect if I say this, but I'm gonna say it this way, instead of just a room.
Real life,
Like, we start somewhere, right? And we grow. So if the room is it, that is amazing. And I'm not knocking that. Ashley has taken all that she's learning and building upon the room to having a physical location that's growing and evolving. There's so many stories. There's even stories of people who figure out this isn't the journey for them. I appreciate it all.
Yeah.
I appreciate it all.
Yeah. How did those conversations go? Is that something that they've done the work, or people may, you know, as they're doing the work, it's like, all right, I may not be as passionate as I thought I was in this, or I don't feel as purpose driven, or is that through conversation and goal setting and recognizing the hurdles they may have to jump that they're like, all right, never mind.
Some of it, you know, it's both, but it's more heartbreaking. Like there's one, and I won't say this one's name, but it's heartbreaking to see someone give everything they have, and then some, and it not work out. And it could work out, like you feel like it really can work out, but it just doesn't. And what that does to a person, that's hard. That's really, really hard to see. And then there's others who, again, let me just put it on paper and think about it. That doesn't really make sense. I'm not as passionate about it. Not for me right now. Or even those who keep showing up to the forum, for example, never starting, but still wanting to be around that entrepreneurship energy.
Yeah.
At some point, if it's for you to start. Because you can conceptualize it all you want to, but you will never get the lessons that come with actually running a business if you never open it. Right?
Yeah. Ooh, facts.
Same for me. But I just, there's those people who give it everything and it doesn't work. So I used to hate this term in the entrepreneurship in the downtown community when I was there. And they would start, especially when I first got into it, they were like, fail. It's okay to fail. Fail fast, learn, and then do it again. And I hated that because it creates an aura that we didn't necessarily and I'm painting with a very broad brush, but as people of color, when you look at our business experience, we don't have the same start rates, we don't have the same capital that comes into our business, we don't get the same sales, we don't hire at the same rates. Like, there's a lot stacked against us. And so this idea of failure, it's almost an idea, it's almost a concept that is elite. Ooh. Right? And I hated that. Because when we do it, we're putting everything into it. We can't afford to fail. And what I now understand, though, is what they truly mean. Like, there's lessons in failure that you'll never get when you win. So it's not a bad thing.
That's real. I got a rap song that me and Scooney just dropped on Organic Cookups.
seen the visuals.
It's crazy. But one of the bars I say is don't give up, fam. It takes strength to fail. Mm-hmm. Right? Because you got to put yourself out there.
Right.
It's one thing to not put yourself out there and be like, dang, I woulda, coulda, shoulda. But it's another to like, all right. And then there's really, even in that, there's no failure. It just didn't work.
It's learning.
It's learning, right? Dust yourself off and try again. Work to a lead in them. So, another question I have for you.
Okay.
What was your aha moment that lets you know, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, to let you know you're on the right track.
That conversation I referenced about the 10,000 foot, like that got me in.
Word.
I was literally on my cell phone crying in the corner of KSPDC on my lunch break, like, I don't know, Dale, I don't know if this is for me. So that got me like, okay, do it your way. Then just the wins started happening. We got, I was invited to a meeting at the invitation of Councilmember Brandon Johnson. Shout out,
my boy B.
Shout out. And the president of Commerce Bank. And at the end of the conversation, Commerce Bank was leaving the neighborhood, 21st and Grove, and they did ask, I got a follow-up call, and they asked if I would consider the building being gifted to Create Campaign. Like, that's a win.
Yeah.
It took me a minute, though, because I didn't want to take away my attention from actually serving entrepreneurs to fundraising for lights, is what I called it. But that's where you get a good team around you. So
sure.
I had an attorney who loves the work that we do. He was like, this is what I do. Like, I might not understand everything that you do. It's important. Like, I don't get it, though.
Word.
And let me put some more context to it. He's like, I will never see this from a Black woman's lens because I'm not a Black woman, but I know the work is needed. So when it came to a real estate deal, he was like, this is what I do. Like, let me do that.
Yeah.
And he did that. And the president of Commerce Bank was so accommodating and really wanted the community to still have something of value at that corner, even though their business model said that they could not be there any longer. And so we were gifted the building in 2018. The fact I was able to quickly fundraise, because it was literally a bank, my family banked there when I was little.
Yeah.
To do the renovations and to bring a general contractor and dictate that I want almost 100% minority-owned businesses, and specifically at that time, Black-owned businesses, working on the renovation of Founders Grove. When you own, you can dictate. And I dictated. And so that was really, really important. Now, we got one in who wasn't that and had a red cap. Well, we had to shut that down.
Quick, I'm sure.
Quick.
Word.
But again, that's a lesson in construction and management. So we managed that.
Yeah.
But that was another win, to open up Founders Grove with overflowing support, and yet in the middle of all the support, haters who called me out my name, called the organization all kinds of names, said we weren't about the community. Like, they're celebrating with us becoming a C. Like, you have to understand how to navigate those things. So that's a win too.
That's something I love to talk about. Because again, I love the contradiction, the dissonance, even in people, right? It's like, you're not here for the community, you're not here for this.
Heard it all.
I'm sure your inbox goes crazy.
I've heard it all.
But then they want to utilize the resources eventually, right? How do you navigate that? Is it business or personal?
So I'll tell this story. It can't be personal, even though even on the worst of occasions I start there. So when I was in 8th grade, again in the neighborhood, I got into a fight. I got jumped. Let me call it what it was.
Ooh, on the north side.
I got jumped.
Oh,
and I got dragged over a curb. And if you get somebody down, everybody's getting their kicks in. So I was stomped by 20 kids. And I have back issues, like irreparable damage to my back. And so fast forward to 2020 and early 2021 when COVID hit and the pandemic, and there were all these resources and businesses were closing down and all of these things. And I got a call from one business owner who the restaurant was going to go under. And it turned out to be the young person who actually led the stomping of me. And I'm not going to act like I didn't stop in that moment and was just like, well, because every time it rains, like you can ask my family, every time it rains, I cannot move hardly.
Word.
My kids stomp on there's no treatment.
Yeah.
So anyway, I physically carry that to this day. But I thought about it, and again, it is a gift. It is a gift that I've been able to be purposed to be at the intersections, to say yes or no to resources that can change people's lives. And so how dare I? And so I did help. I did help them. They were able to get some funding, and they were able to sustain through that period. But people always say, like, I'm blessed to be a blessing. And again, it's not for me. That wasn't for me. That was for the work. And their household and their children deserved an opportunity, regardless of if that person ever stopped me or not. And that's real.
It's such a bar in there, right? Because I rap. I say that out loud all the time because I don't wear my rapper hat all the time. But every time I do something music-wise, there's like at least 3 or 4 random people who have some of the most disrespectful shit to say to me, right? But then in real life, it's never none of that energy. And I'm always like an inch away from being petty and being on the extras and et ceteras, right? Now, of course, I'm not in a way to provide them things that could break generational curses, right? But to hear that is like, it's so refreshing because it would be so easy to lean on, but the work you're doing is so purpose-driven that it's bigger than you.
It's way.
And I don't know that, I'm hopeful that somebody hears that story in itself, right? And realizes that when you have power, because you got power, when you have power to, like you said, to change lives, for one, what you do right now can impact you 20 years later, right? Whatever actions you're taking. But then I also know that in your power, you didn't abuse that. That's beautiful.
Cute.
Right, because she, I'll play. But I'm big on empathy and accountability, right? And empathy, I think, is the biggest love language we can have in the world, right? Because it allows you to see past yourself, to be bigger than yourself. So, wow, I love it. Okay, I got more questions.
Come on, this is fun.
This is
we
fun.
are thinking out loud. You got me somewhere everywhere.
I love it. That's the goal. I want people to be comfortable. Just
I can't come with my talking points in my head. Nah, he's taking me everywhere. So this is the real.
Yeah, get your thoughts off. That train of thought. Wifey Felicia, she laughs at me because I will take almost 15 minutes to get to the point. But I want to take you through my whole train of thought.
Context.
You feel me?
It's the fullness.
The fullness. That context changes the game.
It does.
So, what keeps you up at night?
Ooh, okay. Real talk, Tulsa.
Okay, see, I was wondering how far I was going to go there. Okay, talk to me. Ooh. And you got to get a full context.
Yeah, so the short version. So my husband, we met at the Eagle. This is still the short version. We met at the Eagle. We've been working together side by side. Literally, after we left the Eagle, we went to 259. We were with the Wichita Public School District for a while, same department. He got a job. The furthest he's been away was a few blocks, like, so we are tight. But he was working for the Wichita Regional Chamber of Commerce, and things shifted. An opportunity came up at the Tulsa Regional Chamber, and he was like, I think I want to go for it. And we started looking at the opportunity. We had conversation with our kids, and they were good with it. And so Jonathan took the job. He's the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Tulsa Regional Chamber, as well as the Executive Director of Mosaic. It's a DEI initiative. And that meant he moved.
Yeah.
We announced it. It was like the Wichita internet broke because we're labs, is what we say. Kevin Hart reference. So the lab internet broke.
I love it. Yeah, that's a real thing.
And it was, driving him down there, that was hard to leave him. We took all the stuff, his car, all that stuff. That first weekend, I was a mess. I was a mess, and it was difficult, but it quickly got better. Because Tulsa is on a whole different level.
I can understand that. I can totally understand that.
And it's giving him a national platform. And to see your partner, like your best friend, have fulfillment and just shine, it is incredible. So it has been good ultimately for our family. It's a wonderful getaway. Our kids have their spots that they like to go to, their restaurants and all of those things. And it puts into perspective again how important family is. Because when he is here on the weekends, everything is shut out. It's our family. Or when we go there, it's the same. And so it's been, in many ways, a beautiful and unexpected blessing for our family. It has been difficult 3 weeks. We were battling bad weather and COVID and couldn't see each other. That's our window. But otherwise, we've gotten work there for the for-profit.
That's fire.
Invitations from the nonprofit. I'm a member of the Tulsa Regional Chamber and a whole nother business network, another business community. And it's just, we're starting to bring Tulsa professionals into create campaign work. And so we're creating, again, another layer of that regional network of resources and expertise so that we can benefit as well from a broader network. The work is now, and I guess it's always been bigger than Wichita.
It's way bigger.
It is now, and I understand that now.
The last time I talked to Jonathan, I was like, yo, y'all really got a plan to like fuck up the Midwest. Like, I love it, right? Because again, you see the work, and y'all both are very strong in the work that y'all do. I got a couple more questions, and then I'm gonna let you part. One of my favorite questions to ask, and it's a reflection essentially, right? And I know for me as a parent, anytime I get asked this question, it hits different because I have walk-in examples, right? What would you tell yourself 10 years ago?
Okay, so 10 years ago, I was 30. So I had already declared I was going to do better by my life through designing my decade.
Okay.
So I would have said at 30, no, 31, because I'm about to be 30. So I would have said at 31, just getting into designing my decade, like, you have no idea what's ahead. Continue to stay faithful and watch God. Just watch God. And that every road that you've taken, broken, narrow, crooked, straight, it's all led to you being able to do what you're purposed to do. Go do it well.
So no matter where you at,
go do it well.
I love that. Like, just everything. I always think of music, right? You are who you are no matter where you are, right? And the truth is going to tell itself. So are you walking in that? Because you can't hide from it and do that shit on purpose and well. I love that. That's a bar. My daughter's behind the camera if y'all can't see, and I hope that she heard that as well. Anytime nuggets are dropped, you gotta dip them in the sauce. So before we part, what other things might you have on your mind? Anything coming up? Anything you didn't get off yet? You didn't get to think about out loud that is important for you to get off?
I appreciate the opportunity to share more. Like, this has been a really good conversation I've covered, and you've asked me a lot. It's the part you talk about blackout, and I laugh about that because they surprised me with that. It's like, hey, y'all. And then, like, I was hollering apparently because I can't hear. I couldn't hear on stage, so I was yelling. So that's the whole thing. Everybody's, he was blind, he was hurt, he was hurt. Like, because I'm always so soft-spoken. But, like, it's okay to, like, amplify. And right now we're in amplification. Like, we talked about the Capitol. We didn't talk about, like, the number of consulting hours. We didn't talk about, you know, the invitations to other cities who want what we're doing. We didn't talk about, like, the actual, it's hundreds has turned into thousands. And all that we are experiencing, and also doing this balancing two cities. And balancing the fact I have now a college freshman and a high school senior and a 7th grader. Like, it is all good. And I'm just so grateful, and I'm so honored that to be rewarded. And the reward is not just monetary. The reward is that you actually get to see the evidence of your work and the way that it is moving people's lives. Like, everyone wants to talk about, oh, you know, come see me, I'll charge you $200 and get your business fix on and all of this. But how many people have actually done the work to study and truly understand and then give the knowledge? Or if you don't have it, say you don't have it, and go connect people to the right resources in order to get it. Like, being a business consultant these days is real trendy because I see stuff on TikTok. You know, people are dancing and boom, business tip. That's all great. But when the rubber meets the road and people are bawling about how do they make, and bawling, not bawling, but bawling about how do they make the sacrifice and the money work so that their family doesn't suffer for them wanting to pursue their visions. That's real. that's not social media content create. No, that's
Right.
people's lives. And I'm just so grateful that I've been able to help so many people in that regard, and they in turn have poured into me. Because now, for what I thought I was going to be a placeholder, I recognize and I'll embrace I am the plug. But I've worked hard to be that, and I carry the plug and that title and that idea so humbly, because you have to understand you are not always the source. You have to understand when you're hooking people up to different sources, how to have that spirit of discernment, how to make sure that, you know, it's as good of an encounter as you can make for the handoff. Because this is not just a statement, changing generations, impacting generational wealth, building legacies. This is action. And when we do it and we do it well, not only will our households be uplifted, but the whole economic condition of our city and our region and our world can be impacted. So carry it humbly, do the work. And I'm just so grateful that I've been able to have the right temperament to be able to do that. To be able to do that.
You know, it's very seldom I'm able to shut up and just listen. Right? But the very, from your story, to your energy around the work that you do, to your team, to your impact to the community, to balancing work life, all the way to balancing a long distance relationship, right? A long distance marriage, right? Your level of humility, Christina, is like, it's admirable. It's something that I want to challenge myself to channel as well through my works, right? And I'm hopeful that anybody watching this is able to recognize when to be humble, but also when to talk your shit, right?
They say, no idea.
You feel me? And I think you provide a genuine balance of that, not just through this conversation, but through your works. And I'm prayerful that your work continues to amplify, right, through this region, through the world. And I know it will, because you're dope and you're purpose and passion driven. And I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me and share your story, share yourself, right? It's not easy to sit down and just talk, right? People always think it's easy and fun, but everybody, like, well, what are we about to talk about? Where are we going with it, right? But you just poured yourself out. So I appreciate you thinking out loud with me. It's been an amazing conversation.
Thank you for having me here.
Yes, indeed.
It takes all formal.
Yes, indeed. Right.
No, thank you for it.
Yes, indeed. I'm gonna have you back.
Okay.
Right? Because I got some more questions I want to dig into. But for now, the biggest love, biggest appreciations, and even bigger living, everything that come with it, and everything in between. This has been Thinking Out Loud with Samuel David. The biggest love to my special guest, Mrs. Christina Long. Big blessings.
I got a lot of living to do before I die. I ain't got time to waste. Time don't wait. Everything costs. Time been money. I don't fool with homie. Slime been funny. I don't do no jokes unless I'm the one telling them. Y'all nasty like 69. Y'all boys telling. Stay away from goofies. This is not a movie. Avoiding loopholes from U-Haul, you don't move me.